If you've been eating right, working out consistently, and your scale went up this week, what you're about to hear might change everything. Everyone assumes that a higher number means the plan isn't working. The real problem is that nobody's explained what the scale is actually measuring, and a rising number is sometimes proof that your body's actually responding correctly. I'm Dr. Barbara Hessel. I'm board certified in obesity medicine. I've spent 25 years helping women understand why their bodies respond the way they do. The women who lose weight and keep it off aren't the ones who never saw the scale go up. They're the ones who knew which specific process was producing the number and kept going. The women who quit reading a temporary measurement as a permanent verdict. Today, I'm walking you through 4 specific processes that push the scale up while fat loss is actually happening, and how to tell which one you're dealing with right now. And a test that you can run in the next 24 hours to know whether to keep going or adjust. Point number 1, new exercise loads your muscles with water. Most people think starting a new exercise program should produce weight loss. You're burning more calories, you're building strength, so the scale should go down. When it goes up instead, the conclusion almost everyone reaches is that something has gone wrong again. When you start strength training or increasing your intensity, your muscles start storing more glycogen. Glycogen is how your body holds fuel inside the muscle for the next workout. Here's the part nobody told you. Glycogen holds on to water, about 3 grams of water for each gram of glycogen. So a woman who adds 2 or 3 serious strength sessions in a week can see her muscles pull in an extra 2 to 4 pounds of water in the first few weeks. None of that is fat, but all of it shows up on the scale. And it's happening because your muscles are adapting and getting stronger, which is exactly what you want. The scale went up because your muscles are getting stronger. Quitting now means you'll never reach the phase where those same muscles start burning more fat at rest. And this is temporary. The glycogen loading levels off once your body adjusts to the new training, usually within 3 to 6 weeks. After that, the scale starts reflecting what you actually want. A better measure during this phase isn't the scale, it's how your clothes fit, how your strength is improving, and how your energy holds up. Fat loss and weight loss run on different timelines. You could be losing fat and gaining muscle at the same time, and the scale will look flat or slightly higher, while what's happening is actually the goal and not a failure. I actually see this all the time with women who come to me frustrated after 6 to 8 weeks of consistent training. More energy, clothes fit differently, strength is clearly up, but the scale is close to where they started. When we look at their body composition rather than just weight, the picture is completely different. Fat is down and muscle is up. The scale was giving them an incomplete information and then nearly quit because of it. So when you understand what glycogen loading is and why it produces that number, you stop making decisions about your plan based on a measurement that isn't telling you the whole story. Now, once you track the right outputs, the plan stops feeling like it's failing. But glycogen loading isn't the only process that does this. There's a second one that gets even less attention, and it's tied directly to how hard you've been pushing. Cortisol pulls water into your tissue after hard effort. Most people know that chronic stress can cause weight gain over time. What almost nobody explains is what cortisol does to the scale in the short term, specifically in the 24 to 72 hours after a hard workout or a difficult week. When your body is under physical stress, including the good stress of a hard workout, cortisol rises as part of the recovery process. One of cortisol's jobs is to hold onto fluid in the tissue to support repair. Your body needs water at the repair site, so cortisol keeps it there. Now, women who had a hard training week or a stressful stretch at work or both can retain extra 2 to 5 pounds of fluid for several days because of the stress response. This is more intense after menopause. Estrogen used to buffer the cortisol response, but with less estrogen, cortisol runs longer and harder than it did before. The harder you work and the more seriously you take this process, the more likely you are to see a number on the scale that looks like failure in the short term. But listen, this fluid resolves on its own as cortisol comes down, usually within 2 to 4 days of rest or lower intensity. It's not a setback, it's a recovery phase with a predictable end. If you've had a hard training week or a high stress few days and the scale jumps, the right move is to hold your course and give your body time to finish the recovery cycle. Cortisol retention isn't the same as weight gain. They look the same on the scale. They require completely different responses. Pulling back and restricting more or adding extra exercise in response to this is the wrong move because it raises cortisol further and keeps the fluid there longer. I watched this play out with patients who were doing everything right. They push hard through the week. The scale goes up 3 pounds on Friday. They spend the weekend second guessing the plan. By Monday, the numbers back down or lower than before they started with. The women who learn to recognize this pattern stop reacting to it. The women who don't recognize it quit it right before the number comes back down. So once you can identify a cortisol retention response by what came before it, hard effort, high stress, poor sleep, you can stop treating it as a failure and start treating it as what it is, a recovery window. That distinction is the difference between quitting and keeping going. Now, there's a third process that women over 40 deal with that has nothing to do with effort at all. It's built into the hormonal cycle itself. Now, if this will help you think about your body differently, subscribe to this channel. I put out a new video every week on the real biology of weight and hunger for women, and every video builds on what came before. Here's a third point. Hormonal shifts create predictable scale swings. Most women who are still cycling know the week before their period tends to feel heavier, but almost nobody has explained the specific reason behind it. So it gets treated as random noise instead of a predictable pattern with a predictable end. In the 2 weeks after ovulation, progesterone rises. Progesterone promotes fluid retention as part of the body's preparation process. The result can be anywhere from 2 to 8 pounds of extra fluid weight that shows up reliably in the second half of your cycle and clears within the first 2 to 3 days of your period. In perimenopause, this becomes less predictable because estrogen and progesterone aren't moving on a consistent schedule anymore. You might see the fluid swing at any point in a longer or irregular cycle. You might not be tracking it the same way you did when your cycle was 28 days on the dot. Up to 8 pounds of your scale weight this week might be progesterone doing exactly what it's supposed to do, and it'll be gone in 3 days. This is one of the most important things that I teach women in perimenopause. Because they've lost the predictable monthly reference point, the scale has become more confusing place than it used to be. Once they understand the pattern and start tracking it, the confusion goes away. Tracking your weight daily and looking at your weekly average is a little bit more useful than reacting to any single number. If you know you're in your luteal phase, or if you've noticed the pattern of how your body holds and releases fluid, you can put that higher number in context instead of reacting to it. True fat loss is measured in weeks and months. But the scale on any given morning is just a snapshot of fluid, food volume, glycogen, and hormones. It's telling you about right now, not about whether the plan is working. Ask patients in perimenopause to track their weight every morning for a month without changing anything else. Almost all of them see the same thing, a pattern of daily swings with a generally downward trend underneath. The trend is the data. The day-to-day observation is normal physiology. Once they can see their own pattern in their own numbers, they stop being held hostage by a single weigh-in. When you understand that a big chunk of your daily scale weight is hormonal and has nothing to do with fat, you stop using a tool that's only telling you a part of the story. You can start tracking trend and not the noise that comes with it. That's what lets you stay in the process long enough to see real results. And this brings us to the fourth process, which is the one most directly tied to whether your approach finally fits your body. Point 4, the scale lies most when you're winning. When you've been struggling with trying different plans and you finally find one that you feel is sustainable, you expect the scale to confirm it right away. You change something real. You feel different, so the number should move quickly. When it doesn't, or when it goes up in the first week or two, the instinct is to conclude that this approach is no different from all the others and it's not working. When someone shifts from years of restriction to an approach with more protein and adequate calories, the body often holds more water at first. Protein affects fluid balance. Glycogen stores that were depleted under restrictions start to refill. This is especially common in women who've been cycling through low-calorie diets repeatedly. The body has been depleted and in a defensive state. It's been storing fat and burning muscle. When restriction lifts and protein comes up, muscle starts to rebuild and rehydrate. Glycogen comes back. The scale can go up 4 to 6 pounds in the first 2 weeks of doing things correctly. And this is one of the most demoralizing things the scale can do to us, right? Someone who has just made the right call. Your body has to rebuild before it can let go. And the scale looks worse at exactly the moment you finally got something right. This is temporary. The body recalibrates as it gets consistent inputs. The water from the rebuilding phase will normalize, and then the scale starts reflecting the actual body changes, which are already moving in the right direction underneath the noise. Women need to understand what's happening in this phase so they can stay the course. They know the first few weeks of a properly matched approach can look worse on the scale than the last week of the old approach did. When it happens, they recognize instead of panicking. The women who don't know this, they quit right on the edge of when things would really start working, go back to restriction, lose the glycogen water they just gained. They see the scale drop and conclude that the old approach was better. But that's a loop that restarts every few months and never breaks. We know that. The most reliable thing I found in my practice about who achieves lasting fat loss, it's not the starting weight, it's not your age, it's not how long they've been struggling, it's whether they can stay in a properly matched approach through the first 3 to 4 weeks without reacting to the scale. Those are women who do see results. But women who bail in week 2 and go back to restriction stay stuck. The difference is almost always just whether they knew this phase was coming. When you know the scale's worst reading often comes right after you've started doing the right things, you can stop using a bad 2-week number as proof that the approach is wrong. You stay in it, and staying in it is the entire variable that separates the women who get there from the women who keep starting over. So the question now is, how do you know which of these 4 processes you're dealing with right now? That's exactly where the practical piece comes in. Here's point 5, how to read your scale before you react. Here's what you can do tonight. Every decision you make about your plan comes back to how you read the number on the scale. If you're reading it without knowing which process produced it, you're not making a decision based on your progress. You're making a decision based on incomplete data. The 4 processes we've covered, glycogen loading, cortisol retention, hormonal swings, and the rebuilding phase, they all produce the same number and require completely different responses. You can't pick the right one until you know which you're in. The women I see who stay stuck longest aren't the ones who lack effort. They're the ones who quit right at the turning point. They pushed into a new training program when the scale went up. Week 3 from glycogen loading, they concluded the plan wasn't working and they reset. They did this for years, over and over again, never staying in an approach long enough for it to work. The scale didn't lie to them. They just didn't have a way to read it. Here's what to do tonight. Before you step on the scale tomorrow morning, answer 3 questions first. Write them down if it helps. 1, what were the last 72 hours like? Did you train hard? Did you sleep less than usual? Did you have a stressful stretch? If yes, you're likely looking at cortisol retention response. So rest and hold the plan. 2, are you in the first 4 to 6 weeks of a new training program or a new way of eating? If yes, glycogen loading or the rebuilding phase is most likely the reason for a higher number. This is a keep going message. 3, you still get your period. Where are you in your cycle? If you're in the week before your period, or if you're in perimenopause and you've seen this pattern before, hormonal fluid retention is probably what you're measuring. Track your 4-week trend rather than reacting to one number. If none of these 3 apply and the scale's been trending up for 3 or more weeks with no change to your approach, that's worth a closer look at whether what you're doing is actually matched to your hunger type. There's a video on this channel that covers exactly that. The scale isn't broken and you haven't failed. It's measuring everything at once until somebody tells you which part of the number is your body doing its job correctly. Every weigh-in is going to feel like a verdict. It isn't that. It's data. And data is only useful when you know how to read it. If you want to understand the specific biology driving your hunger and why identifying your hunger type makes all of this finally make sense, there's already a video on this channel called I Carried 50 Extra Pounds as an Obesity Doctor, and this changed everything. Watch that one next. It's the direct foundation for everything we just covered here.